this press conference, this opportunity that we have to speak to the people, to speak to the media, God. We say a special prayer, Father, for those who are sick and those who are shut in. We pray for the families of those who are bereaved and who have lost loved ones, God. We pray that you would comfort them and guide them. We thank you, Lord, for sparing us through the hurricane season and allowing us to go into another tourism season, God. And we pray that it grows from strength to strength, God. We thank you for your guidance and your mercies. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
So again, welcome to all. Represented, we have Radio Anguilla, Lloyd's Live, the Daily Herald, Channel 4, KCN. We missed Mr. Pickering last week, but he was tied up with other important business. We have Dites as usual, and ministers, and certainly the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Chief Medical Officer who are here with us. I'd like to turn over to the health team to update us COVID vaccines recommendations going forward. As Minister prayed, our tourism season is underway, and we certainly have to, continue to protect ourselves, our neighbors, as we, try to coexist with COVID-19. Health team.
Afternoon, all. Good afternoon. So I'll make our remarks straight to the point. Just the salient points. Looking at the global picture, while we continue to struggle with this pandemic, I think there are almost 251 million cases worldwide and more than 5 million deaths. That's the most current statistic. I believe that the most, and of course we have elevated levels and increases in the regions that we are most affected by, being the region of the Americas, so the United States, and of course the region we belong to, similarly, region of the Americas, and of course the UK as well. So we're seeing that the cases are still raging on. We're having outbreaks all over the Caribbean. We're struggling in the Caribbean with deaths and increases in cases. And I think the most important things that have occurred on the global level since we last met would have been Friday, where the United States announced plans to have only vaccinated visitors, non-resident, and few people with exemptions, persons with vaccinated status only, adults, being able to enter the US. So that's a huge, huge development. And secondly, the UK, I think on Friday as well, became the first country to approve the Merck pill. Let me get that name for you, hopefully without biting my tongue. Molnupiravir, an antiviral for persons with mild to moderate COVID who have at least one underlying risk factor for severe disease, including diabetes, hypertension, old age, and so on. So those are the two most exciting things. At the local level, the bulletin is about to be updated. Since the last update on Friday, we confirmed between Friday evening and this morning an additional 38 new cases, but we had some recoveries. Unfortunately, we had our second COVID death on Saturday night. This is a person of advanced age with several underlying risk factors for COVID disease, severe COVID disease. So we now have had our second COVID death since the beginning of the pandemic. And since the beginning of the pandemic up to this day, today midday, we have confirmed 1,077 cases. We've had most of those persons recovering, and at present we have 78 active cases. Looking at hospitalizations, we had 5 discharges over the weekend, 4 discharges and 1 deceased, and at the moment we have 3 persons in the isolation unit. We have observed also over the last 2 epidemiological weeks, that would be October 24th to 30th and October 31st to November 6th, that for the first time in several weeks we saw a decrease in the test positivity rate. We had peaked at a little over 11%, and we said ideally we want to see that as low under 5% as possible. So the previous week we were at 7.15%, and for this last week up until Saturday, we are at roughly, 6%, I would say 5.97%, 6%, right? So We just have to keep on keeping on. You know what this virus is? You cannot get complacent. You cannot celebrate prematurely. So we're watching with bated breath to see if this is a turn around the corner. In the meantime, we keep doing what we're doing. The most important development on the ground, I would say, is the vaccination efforts. We got our vaccine for boosters and for the 12-year-olds to 17-year-olds and pregnant women on Friday. Friday? Or was it Wednesday? Wednesday, and we got the consumables by Friday. Yes, and so we started that effort this morning. As noted previously, we will be prioritizing the 12 to 17-year-olds. So that's fully underway. Up to lunchtime, 56 of those persons had been vaccinated with the first dose, and had also done 4 boosters. We're encouraging persons to register online at the beatcovid19.ai website. It's great to register your interest so we can plan, so we can schedule. There's some preparation and, of the vaccine involved, putting it together, and we want to have as many persons ready to go and when as possible and hit the ground running. And just to note, the UK, as always, has come through for us. The consultants have left. We enjoyed the visit. We believe it was a very fruitful undertaking. Like I said, there's nothing like when persons are on the ground to understand your context. And we have had a very beneficial relationship with PHE and now UCAS, UK Health Security Agency. So, I mean, that's just going very, very well. And they were pleased with what they saw in Anguilla. I think that's it. Sorry, what I forgot to mention, in terms of the pill that's been approved in the UK, it's very early to talk about deployment, but as usual, just like with the vaccines, they have already pledged that the UCOTs will get their cash, you know? Okay.
Thank you very much, Chief Medical Officer. I will be very brief myself. We are very happy with the reduced test positivity rate. 11%, 10% is just too high, as I indicated in our press conference last week. Down to 5% is what we're looking for. In fact, between 2 to 5% is the sweet spot. So we're looking to get on even further. But we are getting there, and we are hoping that as we continue, we go from strength to strength. We are now opening up for our tourist season. And certainly we would want people to stay vigilant. We want persons who will be in certain high-risk areas to, you know, just be careful. I'm certainly proper respiratory hygiene, wear a mask, we have to wash your hands and immunize. The immunization is going well so far. School children today, this week, and boosters as well. Health services, persons of a certain age groups and so forth. And we will begin first doses probably next week or two, once we have our boosters done and our school children satisfied. We do have enough to give all our school children aged 11 to 17 the first dose, or their dose. We do have enough. So please, we encourage parents to go on the website, register them. You can collect the cards, the cards from the Education Department, Ministry of Health, classrooms, and teachers. And that is, of course, our parents have to sign the forms for their children. The drive-through testing is going well. We are happy that persons are happy with having to just drive in with their cars under the tent, do their tests. They don't have to leave their cars, and we're happy that's going very well. It has taken a burden off the staff in terms of in the building itself at the Ministry of Health, but it's providing a safer way of doing these tests. We're now working on the turnaround time for tests to ensure that they're even shorter. However, you know, of course, capacity is capacity. We do have a certain number of equipment at the lab and a certain number of tests of technologists who can do these tests. I know the Premier and myself have been discussing ways of increasing capacity in terms of probably getting additional equipment and looking at staffing issues as well. We do get most of our tests turned around within 24 hours. Of course, it is not always possible. Our staff, by midnight, we try to shut them off because they have to come back to work 8 o'clock the next morning. And we don't want tired people in the labs. To me, they're making mistakes. And we have to ensure that our results are valid and reliable. So all in all, we are preparing for a robust tourist season. We are hiring more staff as we speak. We have already hired some new staff to increase the, the short turnaround time for results. So we're hoping that that will go smoothly as well. Thank you, Premier.
Thank you. I'll turn it over. Any questions that you may have?
A quick question. How many children are registered?
The last count was close to 270 something. However, several persons are walking in as well in terms of the scheduling, because there's an organized effort along with the schools to it's not appointment, by blocks, different groups of students. So some of them are registered already and some were not registered.
I have two questions that somebody asked me to put forward. The first one is, if there's a group of tourists who've been here together and they're being tested to leave, and one of them is tested positive, does the whole group have to stay back?
What has happened in practice, there are two things. If one of the group tests positive, in theory, those persons are potential close contacts, right? You find that sometimes in groups, they have activities that would make them more at risk or less at risk. That is a gray area. The correct, the most appropriate public health response would be for all to self-quarantine or self-isolate. However, if at the point in time they're about to leave the country, it's a day or day before the test, we do report to IHR. If at that point those others are negative, we allow them to leave. We don't want this thing to become a near hostage situation without solid grounds. But IHR, the countries are notified. And in most jurisdictions now, when you come in, there's a at least 10-day period of isolation from where you come from. So these things link up. So the short answer is we try to, if at that point persons are about to leave, they're still testing negative, we allow them to leave. We don't stand in the way of that. And the person who is actually positive must remain in isolation,
Right.
unless they have a private jet or a medevac back to the US, which is permissible, right?
The other question that I was asked to ask you, there seems to be some anxiety about the application to come into Anguilla. Evidently, people apply and they get approved, and then they have their test, and that's approved, but they don't have the final approval, sometimes until the last day or actually the day they're traveling. Now, I'm not in this, I don't know anything about it, but this is what somebody asked me to inquire, why the final approval can't be given when the test approval is given.
They have persons doing this thing pretty much around the clock now. You have hundreds of applications being vetted every day and going smoothly. The key is to apply in time. Invariably, 9 times out of 10, the persons that encounter difficulties, when you find out about when they did what they did, it's an unreasonable expectation in terms of the turnaround. So we have to look at that carefully. A lot of persons complain, and when you see it's less than 24 hours or just a few hours before that they put their final paperwork in, documentation in. And that has been the main thing, the main difficulty. We've increased staff a long time ago. There are people literally working on this around the clock. You find out when persons apply in time, they get through. I had a smooth application process, and I did not alert anybody that I was applying, so that I had no issues, right? So I can speak from my own experience and several others, hundreds of others that get through it no problem. Yes.
A follow-up question to Brenda. I've been contacted by a few villa owners, and they're saying they're having issues with getting the final approval from the medical team here, and at the same time, it's causing them cancellations. Is there any way in reference to, I know you just made mention that you have increased staff, but this is coming from villa managers and villa operators.
Well, I think certainly one of the things they can do is apply early. That is certainly important that they do apply early, way ahead of time, so that the stuff can go through properly. The second processing, the second approvals, the CMO approval is actually go through the tests to ensure the tests are valid tests, to ensure the tests are reliable tests, and the tests that are acceptable here by law. Sometimes that is not an easy process. Sometimes you get tests that are uploaded that are just so spurious. You have to call a lab to ensure what the test is all about. Sometimes you have to make other inquiries, and sometimes you just have to reject the test because some tests are just not what we accept here in Anguilla. So the first approval is the easier approval because more than likely, if you're vaccinated, you wouldn't need approval of your facilities where you live. So you wouldn't have to need an approval for your house and those type of things. So that's easy. The second approval of tests is that when you have to go through the nitty-gritty and actually understand these tests that people are sending. And there have been many instances where people have sent tests in from the US that have just been bogus tests. And you have to, and if you don't catch them, sometimes it's a problem. And sometimes we ask them to retest with a proper test, they turn up positive. So we've had situations where they've uploaded a test that we don't accept, and they say, oh, this is done in the States, it's done by saliva or whatever. It may even be a oropharyngeal test, but it's not the test we want, and it shows negative. And then we said, no, this is not a test, get this test. And when they get that test, they show positive. So we have to understand that the second testing is not simply looking at paperwork, it's actually assessing the information on the paperwork to ensure that the tests are valid and reliable tests. So yes, it can take a little while, and that is where the crux of the matter is. That is the important part of the test. So we try to get the turnaround as much as we possibly can. In fact, the majority of persons get turnaround rather quickly. But you will not hear from those persons, because they're going to come in, they're going to land, they're going to go, and they're gone. But you will hear a very vocal group of people who may not get them back immediately, because of course they want to get out. They want to go, they want to do this and do that and so forth. So that's where we are.
Couple quick questions. The booster shots, the 4 people who got their boosters today, are they coming in to the schools to get it, or are they going into the hospital to get it?
The same school auditorium at Campus B, Rodney MacArthur Ray Auditorium. That's the only place we are right now. Of course, because we're catering for the kids, we want to have a central area. It doesn't make sense to have human resources all over the place.
Right.
So it's better if you can just come there. And certainly, persons who would like to get boosted now because they have to travel or so forth, it's better if you come in the afternoon. Because we try to keep the morning for the children to make sure that they get their shots. Sometimes parents have to come with them, they need to get back to work and so forth, so there will be a little line. So if you do want to get your booster shot, come in the afternoon, and it'll go smoother for you at that point in time.
And is there paperwork that you get validating that you've taken the shot immediately? Do you get that right away, or does that come in after the fact?
You get a card right away, similar to what you would have gotten first for when you did the AstraZeneca. We are now working on a way to have that booster logged into the QR code of your actual vaccination card. So your vaccination card has written on it your first dose, your second dose. We're now working on a way to go behind the system to ensure that that your booster be logged in as well. So when authorities or anybody click on your QR code, they will not only see the first and second dose, they'll also see the booster.
And one more really quick question. I've just been asked to get clarification for this. I know tourists coming in, the quarantine period now is only 24 hours. What is the quarantine time for residents? Is it the same 24 hours still?
Vaccinated, for fully vaccinated. Unvaccinated will still have to quarantine.
And the boosters, I thought I already registered online, and they said they would give us a call, but it sounds like what you're saying is we can just turn up.
No, they will give you a call, certainly, but there are certain people who needed to travel urgently. And if it's a real urgent case, then we'll accommodate you, but they will give you a call.
Quick question, in reference to the PCR antigen test, what's the safe period in terms of presenting the results from that test?
For the antigen test, nobody is taking an antigen test beyond 2 days old, right? So we want to stick to that basic standard. And then the PCR is the same 3 to 5 days prior to intended travel.
And there's a reason for that. Antigen tests themselves are no more than 70%, at the most 75% effective. The predictive value is at 75%, maybe 80%. After 2 days, that antigen test tells you nothing of anybody's status. It tells you basically nothing. It's basically a paper that's not even what the stuff is written on. So really and truly, most countries, if not all countries, only use 48 hours as a valid time for an antigen test, and that's what we do as well.
Good afternoon. Just two quick questions, Mr. Rogers. One, do we have a set date when our ferries will start to operate from Anguilla to Marigot? That's one. And the second one relates to the booster shot. I'm just wondering, for those persons who are already vaccinated, and if you refuse to take the booster, would your status change? Okay, I'm just wondering if the goalpost would have changed.
You will see that the effectiveness wanes, let's say, after a few months. You will still be well protected, it seems, in terms of preventing severe illness and death, but you'll be more likely to catch Delta. It won't protect you, they said, as much of that, although that's still small, but you take the booster and you will get that protection shot up again, increased again against infection.
With regard to the commencement of the ferry on the French side, we are still awaiting the outcome of discussions between the governor and the prefect, but we have developed protocols for that. Went to Exco last week, and we'll be able to facilitate that as soon as officials in St. Martin and the governor here sort out a start date. We can't give you a start date yet, but the governor and the prefect will discuss that rather soon.
Yeah, just further to the point on the boosters, you will see on a related note, that's why we are prioritizing certain groups by risk category. So if you're a healthcare worker, frontline, if you're older at a certain age, 50 plus, the UK is using, and if you belong to high risk groups, it's the same sentiment. The first objective is to prevent severe illness and death. And second to that, you're looking at infection, and those groups are more prone to severe illness and death. So we prioritize those for the booster as well.
Any other questions? Well, I got my booster this morning, and, my arm is still attached, and I'm doing well. So, I would say, when the opportunity comes, get the booster, because it has shown also with persons who got AstraZeneca that if you get Pfizer or Moderna as the booster, it does enhance your immunity significantly also. So, if there are no other questions for the health team today, I will allow them to leave and thank them for their diligent service and for their patience and the hard work they've been doing throughout this whole time of the pandemic. We'll welcome the Minister of Social Development and Education, and I'll ask the Minister for Economic Development, Information Technology, Natural Resources to give us an update on his ministry.
Thank you, Premier. I'll start with the Natural Resources, Department of Natural Resources, and I'll begin with the People's Market. Renovation of that building is scheduled to begin the first week of December, according to plans. The St. Lucian Community Association, they were ready to commence earlier in the year, but at that time, government was not in a position to execute the plans. So right now, we are looking forward to the next 3 weeks for a start date for that project. Mr. Joseph Williams, he is the president of the association. Both him and Gilda Samuels, who is the PRO, I would have spoken to her this morning, and she would have committed to the first week of December for the People's Market to be rebuilt. So it is a welcomed Christmas gift for the farmers and the fisher folk who has been out of a place to sell their produce and sell their catch. So we just want to put on record on behalf of the government of Anguilla that we appreciate the assistance that will be given to us to that project by the St. Lucian Association in Anguilla. Other news in agriculture, we have cleared a parcel of land behind the Albina Lakeage Comprehensive School, Campus A. This parcel of land is just east of the volleyball court there in the valley. We will be constructing a high tunnel greenhouse that was donated to us, donated to the government by a very generous individual who lives in Anguilla but goes back and forth. And again, on behalf of the government, I want to place on record our thanks and appreciation to Tywayne Anderson from Lincus, Anguilla, who would have gifted the Agricultural Science Unit at the ALHCS with a greenhouse structure, a hydroponic Dutch bucket system, and other implements for modern farming. I also want to thank Mr. Marvin Connor from Stony Ground in advance, because he is the project manager and he will be the one responsible for assembling this structure. This greenhouse structure is 125 feet long by 26 feet wide, and it is 10 feet high. Again, this is another display of people in the community recognizing a need and coming forward. This hydroponic greenhouse structure will assist the students tremendously in terms of modernizing them, in terms of getting them familiarized with the technology as it relates to agriculture. And it also goes a long way in helping us realize our goal of diversifying the economy in a way that agriculture itself can create jobs and can create entrepreneurs out of people. This structure and its implement would also be a good showpiece. You know, once it's constructed and it's there in the valley, it's a good showpiece where visits from even those in Her Majesty's prison can come by and see an alternative way of living and operating business. Those who do traditional farming, they'll be able to come by and see how this works. Just to give some agricultural statistics while I'm here. In 2019, I would have gotten these statistics from Customs Department. In 2019, Anguilla exported roughly 3.5 million EC dollars. 3.5 million EC dollars left the economy to purchase tomatoes, cucumbers, sweet peppers, and eggplants. 3.5 million. This figure represents money that could have stayed in this local economy, but it went out of Anguilla to support another country's economy. So the question is, how do we fix it? You know, one way is through technology, and this is why we are grateful for the donation by Lincus Anguilla. And it is our hope that through the Agriculture Department, we can continue to offer more services, whether it is in education, research, or in the field services, showing farmers and showing farmers the potential that farming have in Anguilla. And just to show that we are taking food security very seriously, ADB, Anguilla Development Board, is an option where interested farmers and fishers can go and apply to get a low interest rate loan. It's at 4.75%. This money is there, and I believe that for the next budget, we'll also be contributing more to that program. An update on foreign direct investment. American University of Anguilla, there's a new medical school in town, and it's exciting to see that we have only been speaking to this investor for only three to 4 months. And we've already seen where commitments have been made to have a medical school set up in Anguilla by the second quarter of 2022. We should be taking that MOU to Executive Council this coming week, and we are looking forward to adding to the transient student population in Anguilla by this new addition of a new medical school. So I'll stop there for now if you have any questions.
Quick question. The hydroponic farming, the students are going to do that? And you shook your head, yes.
Yes,
So will
yes.
they also sell? And I mean, the school will make some money off of this deal?
Well, there's a possibility for anything. This is still to be worked out. In the interim, it's for educational purposes. But when you produce something, you can't allow it to go to waste. So it's either going to save different government institutions money in terms of their purchases, or it's going to be able to be sold on the market. So that part of it is still to be sorted out.
Can you just confirm the location of this? I didn't quite understand. Is it near the new Campus A site or the old Campus A?
The old site, where the volleyball court is located currently on the James and Webster Park. Just to the east of that, there's a wall just above that wall. Yeah, so it's behind of Campus A.
Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. With the impending food crisis that the world will be faced with in the coming years, does this administration have a strategic plan for agriculture, for us feeding ourselves?
Thank you. It's a very important question. Upon getting into office, the first thing we would have done was to remove that extra cost that importers of farming implements and fishing implements would have been paying. So we made a standing policy where all the imports of greenhouses, hydroponics, containerized farming, those things would have costed some money. So we've removed the duties. So the rate that the imports would be charged is only at 5% at the moment. And like I said earlier, we've committed some money to the ANGUILLA Development Board, and we'll continue to do that. So we encourage farmers to apply and to seek funding, to partner together, to work together to see how best we can tackle food security from a government standpoint. We are prepared to go all the way in terms of assisting.
Thank you. I think that sounds good, but what I'm saying is we feeding ourselves. We need to mobilize our farmers. Have we been able to give them that seriousness that, Anguilla face, where we feeding ourselves, because that is important, feeding ourselves. I think COVID-19 have shown us some gaps that are there that we need to fill. And also, you just read some figures that tell us the money that we send out, that we can keep in. Can the farmers get an overall view of this and really be serious of what we're doing?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. This week coming, on Thursday morning, there's a call that I'm on with the Food and Agriculture Organization. And we're looking at how we can build more capacity. We're looking at how we can utilize the science to increase yield. So there are a lot of things that we are working at right now. And we'll just continue to communicate with the Farmers Association and work along with the Department of Agriculture to see how we could bring it all together. There's a new marketing officer at the Agriculture Department who is responsible for reaching out to the supermarkets ahead of time to see their needs, to see what their import demand is, and then communicate that information directly to the farmers and the Farmers Association. That is something that is ongoing right now. One of the complaints from the supermarket sector especially is that farmers would show up the day of, with no warning, no warning at all that they're coming, and expect that they'll get all their produce sold. So we're working on bridging that communication gap and giving ample lead time as it relates to what the supermarkets will be able to purchase locally versus what they can import. Can you repeat?
I said, is it a point that you need to meet with the farmers to explain and let them know and understand how they can bridge that gap between the supermarket taking and not turning up on the said day that they want the produce to be sold?
Yeah, that's already happening. The PR person at the Department of Agriculture is already taking the lead on that. So they've already held those sorts of meetings.
Just a quick subject change, but for Minister Hodge. I just, as part of the Anguilla National Trust Council, I just want to thank you for showing up last Friday for the boat launch. It was good having you there and blessing the boat.
Most welcome. Thank you. Just to add, the Department of Agriculture, Department of Fisheries, they have also engaged with the Anguilla Community College to offer some training sessions to all fisher folk and all farmers who are part of the various associations. You know, the aim of the training is to assist them with pricing, to assist them with marketing, to assist them with, you know, running agriculture, running fisheries as a viable commercial entity. So we just want to also thank the ACC and the hard-working team at the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, Natural Resources, the Permanent Secretary. I say thanks to them all.
Mr. Minister, the American University of Anguilla Medical School, what role they will be playing overall in Anguilla's development?
Well, first of all, it's good. First of all, it's good for the economy. It slowly builds on your population with transient students. We know the benefits of increased population, more houses rented, leased, vehicles rented, leased, are purchased. There's so many spin-offs. You know, increased consumption is one of the biggest benefits to having a medical school where students, and not only students, but faculty as well. And what happens, the added benefit is that each student has a family back home. Each faculty, they have a family back home that will be exposed to Anguilla at some point in time. So it increased the overall awareness of Anguilla in general. Yeah, so within the MOU, there's provision for, I think it's 1 or 2 Anguillians, 5 Anguillians to attend that school. And plus there's the possibility of jobs, at least 10, 12 local Anguillians to hold jobs within the school as well.
Yeah, so just to add to what the minister said, you know, Dr. Suda has promised and will be an MOU for 5 Anguillians per year to attend the school, scholarship. Also, he will be donating to the public library a computer lab. He's already been there and met with the head of the library. He's also looking at setting up a community center to help with students, especially with tutoring and learning. And he has already got a campus set up down in West End with some villas there as a site. But that is a temporary site. His intention is to get land and build a campus and then expand from there. So he's also making contributions and donations to the hospital, and has adopted ACAN, the Anguilla Community Action Network, and they've provided him with an office, and the services will be provided. So a good corporate citizen. I think, you know, that Mr. Dick Schultz from Best Buy Aurora set the right tone, that investors should contribute to the society in which they set up their business, and others are following. And certainly the Minister for Infrastructure and Tourism can, you know, elaborate on that other hoteliers have now helped with redeveloping the airport for the incoming American flights and other airlines. So it's good to know that, you know, since we have insisted that every MOU that is signed under this administration must have a social project, that it has stimulated other investors to make contributions. Any other questions for the minister? Last week he was rearing to go, but because of time he couldn't. So, get him while you can. Okay. For now, a temporary is in West End at the Carabella Villas. That's the site right now, but the intent is to get land and build a campus. So that will also help with construction, hiring of Anguillians, and this is all good news. I'll turn over now to the Minister for Social Development and Education and bring us up to date with those ministries.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I don't have a substantive update for you. I would have given you the update last week. However, we are intending on having a special press conference on education later this week to give you the full breakdown on our plans for education that will be following. That will be a fully virtual press conference. So if you wish to attend, you'll have to get a Zoom link this time around. So that's really it for me. I don't want to unnecessarily drag it out. So if there are any specific questions towards education, I'm still open and willing to answer.
When are plans to reopen school practically?
All of that will be covered in the special press conference later this week. But I do, of course, the Premier reminded me, I have to take a second to acknowledge the fact that we have had the successful completion of the Valley Primary School classroom block, which we saw dedicated last week Friday. So I must put on record our thanks to all the persons responsible for providing the finance, to the construction companies, in that case, Bomba Construction, and all the UK's office, the governor's office, the FCDO for providing funding for the completion of the schools, and all the technical staff who've been working very hard to ensure that these projects were delivered. So I do want to say thank you for the successful completion.
Honourable Minister, I know you announced that there would be a press conference, but there's an iLearn digital OECS project that is with the latest online things for school. Is Anguilla part of that?
Yes, Anguilla is a part of it. In fact, as part of the OECS and CARICOM trying to equip us for this digital learning environment, they have offered a course to our teachers. We currently have 70 Anguillian teachers registered to do the digital learning course. And that is so that they're able to teach content online in an engaging manner. Of course, it's a new modality. It's very different to face-to-face. So we're giving them specific training so that they're better prepared to deliver instruction online. And yes, we will be involved in the iLearn, and we are also, they have the Caribbean Examinations Council has invited Anguilla to give special remarks on the way forward for education. So we're going to be taking full advantage of that coming the end of November, and working on ensuring that we continue our development of education in an online modality, even while we start looking as to see how we can get back to face-to-face.
Good, thank you. And the Minister of Infrastructure and Tourism can update us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Don't have a lot to report from my ministry other than we've started a surveying on the road that will lead from the Coronation Avenue east of the Anguilla Tourist Board and linking into the Queen Elizabeth Avenue. We hope to have that started before year's end to alleviate the flow of traffic once the Cutlery Boulevard starts later in this month. In terms of the construction, as you can see, there's some work that is going on there. And as I said before, that is related to the underground work that is being carried on by the utility companies. As it relates to airlift, it's an exciting time for Anguilla. We have Aurora Airlines, Tradewind, Cape Air, all coming to our airport in December, but chief among them is American Airlines, that recently announced, as you know, that they will be increasing their flights from 2 per week to 3 per week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, which means that Lloyd can jet off to Miami on a Saturday, and return on a Monday morning just in time for the press conference. Although he may have to quarantine for a few hours until he's cleared, because our protocols change to ensure that those who are fully vaccinated once arriving on island, once they're cleared in that initial test, they're free to go. And that is important as we evolve to coexist with the COVID pandemic that is hopefully will soon become an endemic, and soon will become just a normal part of living, which eventually it will, because it's really not going anywhere. As it relates to the seafarers, we are working very hard, along with the governor's office and the province in Mon, to reinstate the trade between Anguilla and Marigot, and hopefully that will commence very soon, possibly including the late night ferry, which some of us are familiar with, that was part of the regular scheduled ferry service prior to 1995, prior to Hurricane Lewis in 1995. We are also, there's still one outstanding road from the mill asphalt to be done. Hopefully we can start that soon. But in the interim, we're doing other works. The Premier spoke of the work that is being done at the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport Terminal. That is work that is being done to create desk space to facilitate the large number of visitors and persons who will be leaving our shows December, because we truly expect a bumper season based on the numbers that have been thrown at us. Things are looking extremely well. There's a lot of not only construction going on island, but there's a lot of visitors on island, and those visitors expected to increase over the next few weeks leading into the festive season and into the first quarter of next year. So things are looking on up and up, and we can only be happy because of that.
Thanks for that update. I know that your able-bodied assistant and the call sec is off island and doing good work. Although we only talk about the facts, just the facts. I heard they were very excited about the Valley Primary School handover last Friday on their show today. So we commend them for, you know, the work that they did, and certainly, you know, the students of Anguilla will benefit from these, you know, projects. Minister of Home Affairs, I heard you on the radio this morning.
Yes, good afternoon, Premier. Good afternoon to all of our radio listeners, those viewing via the online platforms. Yes, I would have been on Keystone this morning on his morning show. But before I get into what I want to speak about, I just want to welcome Chef Koth Gums Anguilla, son of the soil, international renowned chef. You know, yeah, it makes my heart proud to see how our local products have risen to such high heights overseas. And he's here on special assignment with Four Seasons for the next at least 2 weeks. And he's brought with him one of his chefs, Kerry Reynolds. So I want to welcome both of them and hope they have an enjoyable time in Anguilla. I understand that they are really very busy preparing for these culinary events done at Four Seasons. So last week, I think it was Brenda or Dawn would have asked me a question about work permits. Yes, Brenda. So I would have asked the Department of Labor to produce some statistics. I'm going to share them with you in a minute. But I just wanted to talk very briefly about the minister. The minister under the law is responsible for the signature of work permits, the minister under the law. And it is exclusively within the discretion of the minister to grant a work permit with or without conditions, refuse to grant a work permit, or revoke a work permit with or without notice, or vary, renew, or extend a work permit. So this lies within the purview of the minister under the law. In cases where work permits are revoked, these work permits are sent to Executive Council for the approval of Executive Council. The other thing I wanted to talk about, there is some discussion in local circles about 6-month contracts. And again, I wanted to go back to the law to indicate that under the law provides for 4 categories of workers: permanent employees, fixed-term employees, seasonal employees, and casual employees. Those are provided for under the law. In interest of time, I'm not going to delve into what each one is all about, but I just wanted to share with you, those are the 4 categories. And I know there's been much discussion that Aurora is offering seasonal employment to a number of new hires, not to existing workers, because when the hotel transitioned from Cuisinart to Aurora, there was a very large concern about the security of the workers that were there at the time. And we are reassured as a government and as a minister and Minister of Labor that those workers have not been touched. So they are not affected by this new provision. What is happening is they are excited about opening up. They don't quite know how the season is going to play out. And so they're hiring a number of new persons to get them through the season. And of course, under the law, when these persons work this season and they start to work the second season, they become automatically permanent. So the law provides for that. And then going back, Brenda, to your question from last week. So I would have gotten some statistics and I want to share them with you. This morning on Keystone, I would have delved into depth into each of the months. I'm not going to do that today in the interest of time. So I just want to give you the overall breakdown. So between the month of January 2021 and October 2021, there would have been 672 work permits granted, and I'm going to break down those for you. They were in 4 categories. 1, temporary work permits. That is work permits for less than a year, which are usually granted to persons with specialized expertise, skills, or persons needed to come in to do specific jobs and then leave. This can also include to train staff. And then you have the other category, change of employment. So this is where a person already has a work permit with other employers and is going to work with a new employer or changing their position. And then we have new work permits, which are granted to entirely new persons coming in. And then we have the renewals, which are permits granted to continue the employee's employment. So we had 672 granted, and of that 672, in the temporary category, we would have had 99, which is 14.7% of that 672. And then in terms of the change of employment, we would have had 50 persons, or 7.4% of those 672. In the new category, that is new work permits, we would have had 107, and that is 15.9% of the 672. And then in terms of the renewals, we would have had 416, or 61.9% of the overall total. So that's a snapshot of where we are at with the labor situation. And of course, at some point, by the end of the year, we hope to update you with the remaining 2 months of 2021. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
can employers use seasonal employee status to deprive locals from gaining positions? You understand?
Yeah, I'm listening to you, yes, yes. So we have positions opening in the hotel sector or in any other sector of the island. The procedure is these positions have to be advertised. The Labor Department has to be aware of what are the job descriptions, what are the skill levels used, and those jobs advertised and Anguillans are free to apply. At the end of the day, when these permit applications come in, we scrutinize the applications and we want to see in part of those applications which Anguillans would have applied, and if they were not successful, why is it that they were not successful? So there's a procedure that we follow to ensure that Anguillans form part of the process of hiring persons in Anguilla.
I'm asking that question based on experience for the past 23 years that I've been in the industry. But isn't it true too that these positions that are given for work permits would have an understudy?
Yes, we are now in the process of finalizing our work permit policy. And as I said this morning on Keystone, we would have sent a draft after ILO. We got it back with comments. We sent it down to the AG's chambers. It has come back with comments. So I'm very hopeful within the next week or two to have the first copy of that in my hands to begin to roll out. It has to go to Executive Council at some point. So we are making some tangible progress in that direction that we will be having, and we'll have teeth now to ensure that when we specify that positions must have understudies, that the understudies that are chosen are meaningful understudies and not just somebody put there for namesake, and then 2-3 years down the road, we find that they really couldn't cut it and they have to start all over again. So we are really putting some teeth to this process, yes.
My question last week was specifically for work permits for Aurora, because they were like new work permits for their upgrade. But you didn't get that. It doesn't matter, but that was the question really.
Yeah.
But now, further to that, the 672 work permits, that means that we have 672 overseas people working in various...
No, not really. What is spelled out is a period of time, the percentages of persons that have been granted. So obviously there are renewals, there would be new, so there were 107 new work permits granted. That is new persons actually coming in. And we had 416 renewals that would speak to existing work permits, whether those persons were here for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, so that's why I broke it down by the category and by the percentages, so that you might see that 672 physical bodies, not necessarily, because you have to look at it by the various categories as I would have outlined.
Thank you.
And one other point as well, a number of these were temporary. And in the case of Aurora, because they were really working very hard to get the property open, they'd have brought in a considerable number of short-term employees, consultants, as they would have termed them, to do specific areas in terms of whether it was operations or on the Gulf Coast or construction. They were here for a finite time, after which they would be leaving and going back to their country of origin. Yeah, but they would have had to have work permits as well, because basically whether, if you're here for a month, that is say you're coming in for a week to have one meeting and go, that would require a work permit. But if you're here for several meetings, then you have to get a work permit, and there's different categories in there. Yes, so they have to be covered under work permits, yes. Yeah. Yes, and we include lawyers. I mean, it's a whole gamut, huh? So we tend to be very specific on a particular sector, but really and truly, you have to look at it across a wider spectrum in Anguilla teachers, lawyers, doctors. I mean, there's a whole gamut. There's a lot of hairdressers and babysitters and persons that care for others. So across, I mean, you have to consider, yes, that the hotel sector may be one part of it, but there's a much wider spectrum of persons as well.
Thank you. And those work permits are across all the sectors in Anguilla, not just tourism or not just Aurora. Correct. All right, any other questions for the minister? Immigration, labor, land, planning? Just want to say that the House of Assembly was prorogued, and now the Governor Excellency has made a proclamation for the House to have the first sitting of the second session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly tomorrow, the 9th of November at 10 a.m. And at that time, I will be tasked with laying out the legislative agenda for this administration for this upcoming session. And also to say that this weekend I'll be leaving for London to attend the Joint Ministerial Council, and we'll meet the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary there who attended the environmental conference, COP26. Some of the topics will include economic resilience, post-COVID response, border security, and I'm sure that there will be discussions on environment and climate change, climate justice, and equity, because, you know, the overseas territories account for 90% of the UK's biodiversity, and so that is an important, you know, consideration. So, if there are any questions, I'll try to answer.
Will you be able to share with us the specific agenda for the meetings? And the other part of my question is, apart from the main meeting, your bilateral meetings, who do you plan to meet with?
That's a secret, Brenda. You know, no, I do plan to meet bilateral nature with ministers. You know, I'm hoping to meet with the Minister for Sports. I do think that Anguilla contributes significantly. Our athletes wear the Union Jack or GB on their chest, and there should be some consideration given to us to assist us with sporting facilities and training. The minister, you know, certainly would want me to do that, the Minister of Sports and Youth, and I will be working on that. Other bilateral, certainly I will meet with the minister responsible for the overseas territories, and then I'm hoping to meet with the Chamber of Commerce to look at investment opportunities in Anguilla. And so yes, so if you can still hear me. Yes, so there are several bilateral meetings that I'm working on. I don't have the full list at the moment, and certainly don't have the final agenda that has been worked on by our UK representative, Ms. Dorothea Hodge, and so certainly I'll have that before heading out.
And are there any plans to meet with the people in Slough? I know quite often the Premier does that.
Brenda, for security reasons, I'll have to kill you, but, you know, we do have planned for Sunday, I think that's the 21st. Sunday the 21st is when I plan to meet with the Anguillian community in Slough. And looking forward to that because we certainly have a lot of family there, Anguillians who, stay glued to what's happening here in Anguilla, and we'll be happy to meet with them and to update them and to understand their concerns.
Honourable Premier, I'm happy that you're going to London, but also you should keep on your agenda. The World Health Organization is tracking 9 animal viruses that would be approaching us. And we see what COVID-19 have done. And I know Anguilla, we are a small island. Could you have that on agenda with the British government, how we are going to get assistance for that? And also for climate change, what assistance we'll be getting for that?
Thank you for that, and certainly this will be part of the discussions we'll have in London.
Premier, just a question, just some feedback, requesting feedback from you. To use Minister Hodges' phrase, there's been much discussion over the last week about perceived lack of protocol coordination with the parliamentary secretary and her visit to COP26 in terms of some of the meetings. So I just wanted to get your take on that. I saw her, as most of us did, her brief with the other 5 representatives from some of the islands, and it was very professionally done and very substantive. It was good. But there's just been a lot of talk on the airwaves about, her going and not having access into some of these meetings. So I just wondered if you could comment on that.
Certainly. Thank you for asking that question. And certainly this is much ado about nothing. The parliamentary secretary, had to get accreditation to be able to attend COP26 as one of the members of the UK Overseas Territory representatives, because before COP26 we were told that not all of the UK overseas territories could be represented as presenters or attending. We had to pick a certain amount to represent the whole 14 territories. I think it was about 6. And the parliamentary secretary was one of those that was chosen given her passion for this, and also, the Bang Task Force, Blue Anguilla, which documents. And there was that she would be able to enter the main area with the world leaders. That was told to her before she got there, and upon getting there, the UK changed its mind, and that's what she voiced. Everybody then went crazy about it, saying that, why would she expect that she can have access? This is what she told that would happen, and she voiced that she was not able to, but then she was able to meet other persons, make negotiations. And I think that she did a great job. I mean, you saw her performing on that Saturday morning, and it made all of us proud to know that, a young person, intelligent, was able to represent us on a world stage. And that's what we want to see as this administration, is that we give young people the opportunity to present themselves in the way that they're capable of. That's what we want to see. Instead of trying to concoct and to make up stories which don't exist. As Anguillians, we want to bring down those who are making us look good. And that's the problem that I have with this whole situation, and certainly I think there are people who know better, who should do better, but maybe it gives them ratings Maybe they get increased likes on stations and, wherever they are. But I think the Parliamentary Secretary represented Anguilla well. I'm proud to know her, to be able to sit with her, and certainly, she can represent me any day. And I'm sure the minister here that the two ministers that she works with, they too have to be very proud of her representation.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I know we ran over a little bit again, it's because these are exciting times. I just want to let you know that, tomorrow, the House of Assembly at 10 a.m., I will be gone for the next 2 Mondays, but certainly you have capable persons who will carry on the press conference in my absence, and I certainly hope to update you on the meetings, the agenda, and what comes out of my visit to the UK. Certainly, it's not a vacation, and we certainly know that we take the interest of the people of Anguilla seriously. Those will be represented to the UK officials, so that we know, and they know that our word is good. When we make a commitment, we stick to it. We don't kick the can down the road. So thank you again for coming. Radio Anguilla, the Daily Herald, Lloyd's Live, Dites. We had Carl Pickering from Channel 4. And, the ministers, thank you for being here. The public relations officer, our liaison to the Spanish community. And every Monday, we hope, if it's not a holiday, we expect to be here to update you on what's happening in the government. And certainly, any concerns you have, you don't have to wait until Monday to find us, call us, and we'll be able to discuss with you any concerns. So thanks again, and I really want to thank Dites for being here always to make this possible.